Hey people, that last video, Noah's Ark Part 2, it was pretty clean. I was thinking about labeling it children appropriate, but I got a dislike. First one I had in a while here. And I know why. It's because I said there is no such thing as Nephilim giants. It didn't come out the Hebrew Bible. That's just a fairy tale that they tell children in Sunday school to see how gullible they are before they send them to the priest's office. So I'm going to start by doubling down on that. There is no Nephilim giants in the Hebrew Bible. It's a fairy tale from King James. So this one is going to be in no way child appropriate. I'm reading it straight out of the Vulgate. If you don't know, the Hebrew Bible is called a Vulgate. The Greek, the Latin, they're all called Vulgates. If you don't know what vulgar is, look it up. But all your boat captains, Noah, are vulgar. And when the boat captain asks for a favor, yeah, it ain't good. And so this couple of lines, 9, 10, 11, and 12, this explains what was going on in chapter 9, I think the end of chapter 9, when Ham went into the tent and he saw his father's nakedness. It doesn't explain real well in there. Unless you read this first, then you understand of what he saw. You know, it's called Noah's Shame, Captain Noah's Shame, and Can's Curse. And began Noah a man of the earth. You see, that's the earth all through chapter 6. And he planted a vineyard. He drank of wine, become drunk, and he was uncovered within his tent, and saw Ham, the father of Canaan, the nakedness of his father. And he told to his brothers. And so for this, Canaan got cursed to be the slave. Makes no sense. You know they're hiding something there. But it makes a lot more sense if you read that in 6 first. You know, I tell you, it's always at the beginning and the end. Usually at the beginning of the page and end of the page, or the beginning of the story and the end of the story. And so it's the beginning that explains what's going on here. And that's what this is. This is the beginning of the story of Noah. You know, Noah was born at the end of 5, and then he had his 3 sons, you know, the last couple lines of Genesis 5. And then it talks about Nephilim giants, or Nephilim Huberts, wise men. And in this place where Moses had just gone to school, a Nephil was a cloud, you know, in plural, in the clouds. And it comes from in Egyptian water and fell. The water phelim. It means cloud, still used today in the study of clouds. You know, a Nephil is a cloud, massive clouds. Neph, a combined form, uses a prefix meaning cloud, used in atmospheric science, especially meteorology. So the Nephilim, you know, the rains fell, the water fell them. And so it's a poetic way of saying who's running things, who reigns. The Nephilim reign. And who reigns? Huberts, the bright mind or intelligent spirit, Hubert. So what King James is telling you about the giants were on the earth actually says, and reigned the intelligent men in those days. And so I read these first 8 lines in the last 2 movies. And this line, it doesn't go here. I'm not going to read it. I read it in the last movie. And it just doesn't belong. It belongs in that last chapter. And so this is where this story of Noah starts here. And so I'm going to read this line 9 from the back to the front, so I won't shock you too quick. Because it's vulgar. It's the way we talk on the boats. Whether it happens or not, I don't know. I didn't see the things happen. But we sure talk them. And it's not things you talk about in front of your mother, your sister. But, you know, it's the talk. The talk. You know, and that's an ancient word for saying to somebody, you know, we need to have a talk. We say, let's go for a walk. Let's go for a walk. Because it was the talking. It was needing the talking. And in his generation, you know, it was in a dirty In dirty what? It was in dirty what mine, M-I-E-N. The dirty mine is all him the talking. Noah was vulgar. And a blameless was a blameless, that's a 10, T-E-N, 10 high. He was 10 high. 10 high is something to say, you tell your buddies, oh, I was at the bar last night. Man, I was about 10 high. And that means a high state of intoxication. 10 high. You know, you can't blame me. You can't blame me. I was 10 high. I was 10 high in dirty what mine is, all him the talking. And then, you know, a man righteous, you know, if you're reading this without the marks, if you're reading the A words backwards, the S-I-A, the I-A reads the U. This is a sucks, S-U-X, sucks dick. A righteous man sucks dick. He sucks dick, but he was blameless because he was 10 high in dirty what mine is, all him the talking. So it's starting to give you an idea of what Ham saw in the tent when Noah was 10 high. And so if you read it with the A words backwards, you know, and it's N, E-N, the L followed by the A reads the N. And in it willed it Nana. There is no such thing as Noah either. That's something else that they made up for foolish people. It's just a N-H and H. A Nana. Nana sucks dick. And so Nana, that was just a god all over back in the day. That was everybody's god. And it seems they got a pretty good sized page on her. But they always come down to, we don't know where they come from. We don't know what this means. We don't understand this. But it was god of the Bactrians. You see it on Greek coins. And sometimes spelled Nania. They seen it in the Chinese phonetic transcriptions. It was Sumerian, Mesopotamian. They knew of Nana, associated with the moon, Nana's Ark, presumed to be a derivative of the Mesopotamian goddess Nania. In writings in 2100 BC they found it. Many of these scholars talk about it. One says it could be assumed it originates in Akkadian because the ending suffix, the aya, may come from a word meaning day or morning. Available sources indicate that Nana was the head of the Kushan in the Sogdian Empire, where they show the Kushan Empire over there above India, consistently portrayed holding the cornucopia. You see, it's full of grapes. Prevailed through Hellenistic and Roman periods. A possible forerunner to the depictions of Nana riding on a lion is the Syrian convention of showing Ishtar standing on the back of lion. The back of lion. You know, you see all those Egyptian couches in the artwork. The couch is always shaped like a lion. The back of lion. It's an ancient word for a couch, you know, something to lie on. Nana as astral goddess, typically depicted with the crescent on her head. And some argue that this could be the horns of Venus. You know, you see Venus in the moon or the crescents that you see mostly. A frequent portrayals depicting her battling demons, you know, battling her demons. She was a drunken whore. Worshipped in Central Asia, Eastern Iranian, and all of these writings in here, it all sums, you know, remains uncertain. They're never certain about this. They're missing a lot of information. But she was on coins in 20 BC and in 127 CE. You see Nana on the coins. And comes with a bunch of suffixes having different meanings. The servant of Nana, of Vandak, Nani Farn, and Nani Tavar, and Nani Kasei, and Nani Yak. And so this tells me that this is a fictional character. And just like they wrote all the stories in the Bible, all the names, They're fictional characters and they have a meaning. And it adds meanings to the story as you talk about the two characters together. It gives another meaning to the word, to the story. And you'll see that all throughout the Bible. It'll pick a word. Sometimes it's a person, sometimes it's just a word. And then it dances around and it puts prefixes and suffixes around that word to change the meaning of the word. And in some 9th or 10th century art, she was seen in the company of two other figures, a three-headed trident-armed West Parker and a three-eyed deity known as the Great God. And that was her symbolic animal, was the lion. She was a whore, and may have been called Queen Nana in the 5th century. So sometimes when I'm reading, I'll look at the vowel points to help get a clue. It's just an N and an H, but it doesn't confirm anything for me, because the story they gave me is it was first written like this. There was no block style writing. And it's just an NH. There is no vowel points. I'm not going to add 2 extra vowels between an N and an H. And if I did, I think I would turn that A and the O around. And that's sodium hydroxide. And most people know that as lie. And there's a good chance that's what that means. Lie. She lies around, sleeps around, and lies about it. And if I was to see a word today, just spelled N-H-N, I would read that as none, as the nun. And that man here, this is Ish. The covenant man, he was British. And so that makes this like an adjective, and was nunnish. But let me read this with the marks. I'll read these words straight. All it willed it, nunnish. It's dick, 10 high. In dirty, in the V followed by the A here reads as a T or a D. In dirtied, it mine is. A-E reads E-S. It mine is all him the talking. Always talking about what's on that dirty mind. And then, like I say, who they claim to be the author of this, they stated he was schooled in the best schools of Egypt, and the priests knew that words started with A read backwards. And so you read this again, and this is an E-N now. And in it willed it Nana sucks dick. 10 high. In dirty, and then WT, what, and then AE is, and what is all him the talking. So in the Sumerian, they say, they call it Nana Sin, sin is the moon. And some say she was the same as Ishtar, with her foot on the lion. And this is her battle weapons back here, the arrows. And she was ranked a 6. She had 6 horns on her head, and the rest of them all had 8 horns. She just had 6 on her mind. But you see her stand on the lion, and she got the bow in her hand, and this was possibly the old Venus. And you see that in the first covenant, the covenant with Noah, and there shall be seen the rainbow, and when rate they fist, F-S-T, the fist. And the fist doesn't mean rainbow, it just means bow, bowmen, archers, and you see it again down here, and this area in here is white, W-H-I-T-E, and shall be the white, the fist of Bonnie. And Bonnie, that's the old word, means good. And so you see that this is the first covenant, and it's written in, B reads the N. That's where the word British come from, but it's in the riddle. The covenant everlasting is in riddles. It's never straight. You have to think about it. In the riddle from Ben, all him of in. And the rest of this stays vulgar. You see when it's talking about, is corrupt, is S-H-T, what shat, what shot. It's no good no more, it's shot. And you'll see they twist this word around a little bit, spell it a couple different ways. It probably says corrupt, NSHTE, in sheet, and had corrupted the shit, SHIT. So she was a corrupter. When you're reading this with the mark, it's a teaches, a TICHS, and teaches the shit. In sheet, she teaches the shit. And as I read on down, it makes me think that that's pronounced more as none. And you can see another way that word's here is, the shittim. And the shittim is often called the wood uncorruptible, or they often call it the wood of acacia, the shittim. The wood of acacia, or the shittim wood, pronounced as the shitta, right in your shitta. And they say, this especially means acacia mimosa. And like I say, I can cook up some shit, the strongest drug I ever did in my life, out of some acacia mimosa. It's some bad shit. And so if she teaches the shittim, that's probably something they don't want you to know about. And when they interpret it in the Greek, that's when it's the wood incorruptible. And it's sula. And it's the same word for wood, a tree, or a cross. The cross as scepter. But as I read on down, it makes me think more that's pronounced as none, where the word none comes from. And you see, it's telling them to build the ark, and the ark of the ark. The ark means length here. But the ark, you'll see it often, it's just ETBE. But you'll see most of the time it come up after attack. As in, when you shall go into the ark, of at all habit. The habit is what the nun wears. The habit it in. The habit it in hate. HATE. The habit it in hate. And this is an Aryan goddess. It's a Wastic. WASTK, Wastic. And your wife. And so a man is ace, and a man, his wife, is a swastic. And that's what this represents. It represents 4 feet. A man and his wife getting at it. Ancient symbol of the whorehouse. The symbol of love. Symbol of good luck. A swastic. A man and his wife. Why they come out with 5G? Because they didn't want us to realize what 4G was. A G is a foot. 4 feet hanging out the bottom of the sheets. It was from the old worldwide. Everybody knew what the foot meant. It was the letter G. In the spiritual meaning, they say it means to regenerate. When Moses saw 2 men fighting, they were not Z's. When you turn it around the other way, it means they weren't sleeping. They're not Z's. They're not sleeping. They're doing the nasty. 2 men. A man and his wife, and the other way is 2 men. A swastic, not Z's. And so this mem is the Egyptian letter N, and it's replaced it with the letter EN, 10. And all it willed it, none is it stick. A 10 high in dirtied. 10 high and dirty at mine is all him that talking. And why willed, why meaning how or who. Why wielding is less of venom, atom some. A less of venom, atom some. Some of them got a smaller dick, the shem. And why wielding is less of venom, atom some. At much debt, D-E-T, a debt, and I, double T, reading as I, a debt if gypped. Why wielding less of venom, atom some, at muchum debt if gypped. And what shatters upon, and was corrupt the earth, what shatters? What shatters upon Halem? what a menace. You know, the L followed by the A reads the N. And what a menace. The A-E reading as the E-S. At the what menacers comes. The menacers comes. The violence. Hamas. And then an A followed by the A. The first one reads as an I. You'll see that in the Egyptian writing. And worry. And worry all him at shares. You know, shares is your piece of property, your crop sharing. At shares arts. And we've the N followed by the E reads as a bet, a B or a V, or a, you know, bet means in. And sometimes it reads as a in the, and sometimes it's a B or bet. But this is weave, W-E-V-E, and it's where your word when come from, and it's because the planets are talking. You know, the planets are the gods. All the kings are named for the planets, and so the planets are the time when, but it's also weave. And weave in sheets, she teaches the shit. And the colors insure at us. And this is us as in a UC or a UK, and it means things that happen at night. And in us a redrick. And that means that's their way of talking. And it means as in the covenant, you know, is written in riddles. It's redrick. And us redrick all shares earth. So I'm sure everybody's interested in Noah builds the ark. And I'm sure it's going to be tough because they really twisted these words. But that'll be the next flip. And good day.